Joining us today, we have an incredible young lady who went through a very, very traumatic experience in life after being involved in an almost fatal car accident. Her journey is the prime example of how to go from trauma to triumph. So without further ado, y'all put your hands together and help me give a warm welcome to Olivia Gilling. Well, hello, Olivia.
Hello.
It is so wonderful to have you here today.
It's wonderful to be here today.
Right? On a whole nother level. You are a miracle.
Yeah.
You're a walking miracle.
To God be the glory.
Indeed, indeed. So in 2017, you were so excited to leave the nest to become, to become independent and pursue your dream career of midwifery. And then take us back to that moment before we move further. Tell us about where you were.
Where I just graduated high school. I finished, I was top of my class. God showed up, he showed out. That was a testament in my life. And, I made the plans just to go to a 2-year college, graduate, go to a 4-year college, become a midwife. That was my dream career. And then things took a shift.
In a blink of an eye,
Yeah.
a tragedy struck.
Yeah, 2 weeks later.
2 weeks after you graduated. But I want us to revisit hours before the tragedy. You woke up ready for a new day. What was that day like for you before the tragedy?
That day was a normal day for me. Getting up, waking up, being excited about my day. I was working at a summer camp, so I was excited to see the kids. I was with the kids, actually. And we went to a field trip. We had a great time. And even reliving that moment, it felt like something was going to happen.
Wow.
And, I picked up my car and someone said to me, she was like, "You're glowing. For some reason, you're glowing." And I didn't know what that meant. And my mom looked at her and I looked at her. We're like, "What do you mean I'm glowing? I don't know what you mean." She was like, "I don't know. I just see a glow on you." And
so this glow out of nowhere.
Right.
Then out of nowhere, your life changed.
Yeah, in an hour.
Forever. It changed forever.
It did.
Please share with us what traumatic experience happened to you.
Right. So I was actually on my way to a graduation dinner to celebrate graduating with some friends. And on my way there, I was going down the road and a 16-year-old driver who did not have his permit as yet lost control of his vehicle and came down the wrong side of the road and T-boned me and took off all of my side of the car, which left me with a cracked skull from ear to ear. I had a shattered pelvic, my lung collapsed, and they said that I couldn't walk for 6 months to a year. And then after that, I would have to walk with assistance. After that, we found out that I should have still been in a coma.
Oh my goodness.
Then. Yeah.
But God.
But God.
But God.
Yeah.
So you talk about the cracked skull that you have, you endured. It formed from ear to ear. You had it from ear to ear,
Yes,
right?
a clean cut. Yeah.
And then you had your shattered pelvic, a collapsed lung, and that's not even all.
Yeah.
What more do we not know from what you just said? You experienced even more than that. Can you take us a little deeper?
Yeah, so I endured all of that. With also, they had to puncture my chest. I actually felt that, and, to get the lung to come back too. I had hearing loss, which is hard for me because I am a music lover. I grew up in music.
Right.
So I had hearing loss. I couldn't hear. My face was paralyzed. So when I tell people I don't look like what I've been through, they don't believe me. In order to talk, I had to hold my hand up for people to understand what I was saying.
And that's what I want to talk to you about now.
Yeah.
Like, you have a newfound reality.
Yeah.
What was your new reality of what you're living?
It was a whole new world. In the book, I say that, when we see the ramps to go into like a grocery store, we never look at that, but that was my new reality. I had to use that ramp. When we go to public restrooms, there's one big stall. That was my new reality. I needed those things. I needed assistance, everything that I did. I was no longer independent. And I just realized that all the things that I used to take for granted was so worth appreciating in the moment. Yeah, so.
It really made you appreciate so much. You say that people look at you and say you don't look like what you've been through. And I agree with them, because when I first saw you, I expected something different, but God really restored you.
He did.
From what happened and what we see in the pictures and the car accident. When you passed by me, I felt like a miracle had just brushed next to me. And it's powerful. It's powerful. So today, not looking like what you've been through, you are a living testimony, and you drop everyone's jaws that you share your story with. Tell us your healing process.
My healing process, especially as a believer, I always say that we're a believer, and it's really tested when it's actually time to believe. So
yes.
I believe things are going good. My bank account is high. I'm working, I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm breathing. But when some things are taken from you, it's now faced with the reality of, do you really believe me? So going through that healing journey, it was like, God, you know, I grew up believing. I walked in church. I learned how to walk in church, and you just brought me through high school unbelievably at the top of my class. And I had a moment where I had to look at him and just tell him, I believed you through all of this. You cannot let me down. And that healing process was a lot easier once I actually believed. And
do you believe in me and then trust me?
Exactly.
So you then had to like
trust.
activate that trust.
I did.
Yes.
So that was also a part of the healing journey, you know. And once I started worrying about the inside in my heart, because I was bitter. I was a bitter believer, and that was the reality that I had to face. But, you know, in that moment, I had to look at God and say, I need you to bring me through. I believe in you. You have to show me who you are right now. And once I dealt with the internal, then I started to see the physical come into form, right? So I started to feel like, you know, God, these bones are healed. I'm going to walk sooner than they say.
Yes.
And so said, so done. God literally showed up and showed out. So through that healing process, it was a lot of frustration, a lot of knowing who I am as a person and even as a believer, and getting to know who God was even more. So that was a huge part of my healing process.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing testimony. We are gonna take a short break, but I want you to stick around because we're gonna come back and talk about Olivia's book. We'll be right back, don't y'all go nowhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Sisaundra Show. For Olivia, this journey called life has not always been easy, but it's been a journey filled with adventures and miracles. And in her new book titled Liv's Journey, Trauma to Triumph, she goes very in depth on her story. Olivia, what inspired you to write this book?
What inspired me to write this book, honestly, was because I realized that I did overcome adversity, but it wasn't the norm. I realized that people in my situation are usually paralyzed from here on out. They need assistance every single day that they wake up. And I realized that not only was it for me, but it was for people to hear, to listen, to read. And it's a very encouraging story. So it inspired me just to let people know that it's not over. Even when it looks over, it's just
not over. And if anybody can testify to that, you can,
I can.
Right? So what is the message when readers buy this book and they finish it? What is the message that you want them to walk away with from Liv's journey?
So from Liv's journey, like I just said, I just feel that no matter how over the situation may look, that you can't escape it, or it's too much turmoil, or you feel like I just can't bother. That's not the case. I look at Liv in a wheelchair who was encouraging people, even though she was in a wheelchair. And some days I have my bad days, but when I look back and realize that even though I had a tube in my chest, I couldn't hear people, I had to speak and they couldn't understand, I have to realize that, okay, I have a lot more to be grateful for. And as long as that I have a pulse, anything can be conquered. And God showed me that through it all. So yeah, I want them to be encouraged that no matter how over or how much you're struggling, you can overcome.
You can overcome.
Yeah.
So at what point in your life when you were going through the trauma that you decided, I'm going to put this in a book?
Well, like everyone, COVID did a lot when you're isolated.
Yes.
So during that time, I remember like it was dark in my room. I was just sitting there and I believe I was going through something, but I just took out my computer and I started writing. And as I started writing, you know, it uncovered some more trauma that, oh, wow, like I cry when I read back some of the things that I went through. So during that time, I was like, it's time. It's finally time to actually get this story out and write it out. And I feel like God does things at a certain time for a certain purpose. So I feel like it was just that time to do so.
So what does it feel like to be an author?
Ooh, it's new.
Wait a minute, a published author.
Published author.
Yes, that's a huge accomplishment.
It is. It feels surreal, to be honest. Sometimes it's hard to grasp it, like when they say, oh, she's an author. Like the other day, they told me to introduce myself. And I'm like, I'm Liv, I do a lot of things. And my friend was like, no,
you can't just say that, right?
She's an author. So it's hard to grasp, but I'm still walking into that new title, being a Black young author too. It's something to celebrate. So
that's amazing. So you need to get your 30-second elevator speech on.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So we got to throw that together.
Right, I do.
So listen, with everything that you've gone through, what inspires you to keep going? You've written the book.
Yeah.
You know, you're out here, you're telling people your story. What inspires you to get up every day and keep doing this?
What inspires me, honestly, is because when people tell me how the story has touched them, because I don't really look into those things like, did you like it? Did you like the book? Did it touch you? I don't ask those things, right? So when someone can actually come and tell me that, Olivia, that story has touched me, and my friends will go back in the book like they're going through something and they'll tell me that, and it makes me realize, okay, Liv, yeah, you can keep going because your life is touching other lives, and that inspires me to keep going. What also inspires me is when I can look back and just see how far I've come. You know, I have to look at that and be like, Liv, you can keep going, because, you know, sometimes I'm like in a funk and just down, and then sometimes I have to snap and get it together.
And do you ever just remind yourself that you are a miracle?
Yes, I have to.
And that kind of makes you go,
absolutely,
it ain't so bad.
It's not so bad.
God is so good.
I could be being wheeled around right now. I could be needing assistance to go where I need to go.
You could not even be here right now. But God spared your life.
He did.
To be exactly what you are.
Yes.
What's next for you?
Now,
do your friends call you Liv? I see it's Liv's journey.
Yeah.
We say Olivia.
Yes.
So Liv, what's next for you?
I love it. What's next for me is what I'm expecting for the Sisaundra Show. Greater greatness, bigger things, higher heights, deeper depths, just excelling into the places that God is really taking me in.
Amen.
So
well,
more
we
books.
receive that, and we want all of that for you. We wish you
so
continued
much.
success. Your book is called Liv's Journey. Y'all know I got to pick it up. Y'all check out her book. It's called Liv's Journey, Trauma to Triumph.